1. Just going to start off with the fact that you don't have to believe anything I say, but I know what I've seen, heard, and experienced. There is more unknown than known. Okay, so this happened about 7 months ago, around June, July-ish. A little bit of backstory. I'm Native American and I believe in a lot of superstition. However, I'm extremely scientifically inclined, and a lot of my life revolves around evidence-based experience and solid proof. But there are things out there that science doesn't know about yet, because of vibrations and other reality-bending shit, like why particles are everywhere until we collapse their possibilities with our observation. Time is an illusion just as much as our reality is a dream. There's a lot that goes on at this house I stay at, maybe 2 miles outside of town. About 40,000 people in town. It's a small community surrounded by wooded areas that are infested with what are called skinwalkers. You've probably heard of them. Not sure if they are related to this story completely, but they are involved in at least a small portion. The house I stay at is haunted as fuck. My mother and I are really into energy work, and the top story is always crawling with ghosts, because we live on the bottom level and guard it. We have CNAs that take care of my grandfather 24/7, and have reported tapping on the windows, banging and various noises, and walking on our balcony. Sometimes things move without reason as well. There's more that goes on, but it starts sounding real crazy. Not much makes it downstairs because of the mental wall we have down here, but I still experience weird things like dog footsteps upstairs, and various window tapping, and above walking on the balcony. Now onto the glitch, which I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happened. It's a late night, about 2 a.m. My brother and I are just getting back from a friend's house after dropping another off at home. I park my car in front of our garage and we get out with my dog. I talk with my brother for a few seconds before I pause. I hear this screaming in the distance. The longer it goes on, the more it sounds like a little girl screaming in the distance. He hears it too. We listen to see if it's a little girl or coyotes, because we get them every now and then. Then, as it's wailing, it jumps closer, maybe 20 feet. It doesn't grow closer, no. It jumps. When it got closer, the sound became more noticeable. It sounded like an elk calling, but like a coyote howling too. A mixture to sound like a screaming girl, yet can still hear the different wailing. Then it jumps to just around the corner on the other side of the fence. Definitely close enough to see us. My dog starts pacing as my brother and I are frozen. At this point I should mention these wails did not echo, and we live in a valley of sorts surrounded by large hills. Like it was very much in our heads and we couldn't hear any ambient noise around us at all. The wails continue and don't let up. Next thing we know, there are maybe 10 or 15 of these things surrounding us in a perfect circle, wailing. Coyote-elk mixture of screams. My dog starts running for the gate and we follow suit. We hurry inside, and as we reach the area just under our roof, they halt. No more wailing and we go inside. Fast forward 15 minutes, and my mother immediately knew something was wrong. She woke up and asked us what had just happened. We tell her and she goes outside, upstairs to check things out. Because right next to my car the sprinkler system is going off, and it's flooding the downstairs yard. It's not supposed to be on, and as I mentioned earlier, we didn't hear anything. The water trickle was loud, and maybe 5 feet from my car. She goes upstairs with my bro in front, and he walks outside and told me later he could feel a weighted pressure on his being going outside. And as my mother steps out, it goes away. He also told me she stopped once and shone her light into the darkness as if she saw something. They turn off the sprinklers and all is well, so we go outside downstairs and have a victory smoke. While we sit outside, we hear what sounded like one of those 50-gallon blue barrels being lobbed around just down the street. Over and over again, like horses throwing empty food troughs around, but louder. So we move closer down the yard to investigate. Our cats were moving around, playing with each other and following us. I need to mention there is also a generator buzzing just over the wall, and that we are not too far from the highway. These details are important. So this thing stops throwing these barrels around suddenly, and we wait. We don't hear anything. Anything. It's dead silent. But we don't notice it till later. We are just intrigued by this noise. Not long after the halt, we hear what sounds like a very heavy pair of footsteps down the road. Our sight is hindered by a house, but we move to see if we can get a look at this thing. A couple of steps, and then it starts dragging something with chains, a very, very heavy metallic object, like it was dragging a crane behind it. It was very loud. It kept this up for about 4 minutes, and we kept moving to get a look at this thing. And just as we near the spot to where the sound matched our vision, as in we should have seen it, it stops. No more footsteps, no more dragging. So we sit and wait, and notice we can't hear anything. No highway, no buzzing, no wind, and the cats are nowhere to be seen. A few minutes later we hear what seems to be growling far down the road. Then it grows closer, slowly closer and closer. It's a truck, but it's far down the road. Closer, and we can tell it's a very large vehicle. It gets to our vision, and this thing has a loud, deep, dieselish rumble. It's fucking big, taller than our 8-feet stop sign and at least 10 feet long. It's clearly an army vehicle, maybe 6-wheeler, not sure, it was dark. But it had a lot of orange lights on it, like a semi-truck. It creeps by slowly and goes up the road. 1 minute later it's followed by a small army jeep. I shit you not, one of those camo green door with a star on it jeeps, following it up the road. It crosses the cattle guard, and slowly our sound comes back. Everything hits us, the wind, buzzing, highway. Even the cats show back up. One of the weirder things that has happened to me. Me and my brother discussed what happened, and we still don't know. I told him about the SCP website not long before, and he said we might have experienced a breach. Secure and containment. Maybe they catch these things by trapping them seconds behind us in time, and holding them there with certain products of mass. The thing dragging behind it was the mass they'd somehow shot it with, this mass to keep it contained. Somehow we got caught in the time bubble during the procedure. But it was just a what-if kind of joke. We have no idea what the fuck happened that night. The next morning we checked the road. There was a large groove in the road that went where this thing sounded to be dragging. It slowly disappeared over time, like the road healed itself. 2. Alrighty guys, this is gonna be a long one, so bear with me. Last night at work, we completely lost a server. For a little background, this server in particular has a tendency to kind of disappear from time to time. Going out for a smoke without telling anyone, sneaking off to the private bathroom in the banquet hall upstairs to poop in peace, sitting in the back eating. So when one of the other servers asked, "Has anyone seen Mark?" we all just kind of laughed and said he was probably off taking a dump or something. But when his table started asking us to grab their server because they couldn't find him, we got a little worried. He never disappears for long. Since I was almost off, I offered to go looking for him. Here's where you need to understand the layout of our establishment a little, to get the full impact of the story. Our restaurant specializes in private parties and banquets, so we have a lot of private and semi-private rooms that are usually closed but can be open for regular seating on busy nights. If you look through room A by the bar, which was closed, you can see into room B in the back of the dining room, which was open. We also have the attic, a full reception hall and bar above the main bar. The guest stairs to the attic are in the bar, and the service stairs come down into the kitchen right by the back door to the employee lot. There is also a basement with offices, coolers, and storage. Basically, it's a big place, but not huge. You can't really hide. So off I go. While I was in the dining room, I peeked into room B, 2 tables of guests, and that's it. On my way back to the bar, I peeked into room A, where all our coats and food were. He wasn't there. Looked through room A, into room B again, still nothing. Then I went up to the attic, empty. Even checked the private bathroom. I went down the service stairs and into the basement where I ran into Manager A, who was leaving. He said Mark wasn't down there. In the kitchen, I ran into Managers B and C. They said they hadn't seen Mark, but 2 other servers had asked them where he was, so they started helping us look. At this point, they asked how long he had been gone, and I told them I hadn't seen him in 15 to 20 minutes. Manager B, also a male, went to search the bathrooms. Manager C went to double-check the attic. I went to check outside in the smoking area and his car. Nothing. Manager C and I ran into each other and double-checked the basement together. Nothing. Manager B radioed us and said the bathrooms were empty. Now we are kind of concerned. He had tables still there. His car was still there. We were out of places to look. Then we walked back out into the bar and lo and behold, there was Mark, at one of the server computers. We asked where the hell he had been for the last half hour, and he said he had been in room B the entire time, talking to a very chatty table. What? Now the managers are asking us why we tore the whole place apart without even checking the dining floor first. They started cracking jokes about how hard we had looked for him, but I'm still confused. Not only did I check room B 2 times, but another server had a table in there as well, and she was the one who asked me in the first place to go look for him. How the hell did 3 servers and 2 managers not see this guy when he was literally in plain sight for half an hour? Even his other tables in his section, literally 20 feet away from where he says he was standing, said they hadn't seen him in a while. This dude just up and vanished and then reappeared. It may or may not change the way you take this story, but the table he had been talking to was incredibly weird, super creepy and acting really strange. Take that as what you will. Edit. A few people have asked for more info about the couple at the table. It's really hard to describe them, but I'll do my best. First off, their appearance. He was a rather large Hawaiian Samoan-looking man with a long braid. Looked almost straight off the islands. She was a shorter, kinda stocky, tan Caucasian girl. She was very pretty, but her facial expressions caught my attention. She would go from looking overly happy and excited, hanging on the man's every word, to looking rather frightened and like she wasn't all there. Almost like she was dreaming. He was very chatty, especially for the fact that it was a diner on a holiday. And they were speaking with their server, who was working and busy, while they were clearly on a date. Next, their behavior. They came in and specifically requested the back table in this separate little room. Basically one of the most hidden tables in the restaurant. They were very touchy and affectionate from what we observed while they were sitting. When we finally found Mark, he said they had been there for almost an hour and had only ordered 1 soda and 1 water. He decided to avoid their table because they were creeping him out. He never elaborated really. Once the other table near them left, they got up and started dancing, we assume, although it was more or less standing in the corner making out and groping each other for half an hour. Even though they were clearly absorbed with each other, every time I walked even near the room they were in, they would both stop what they were doing and stare at me, while continuing to touch each other. It got so excessive that 2 other staff members mentioned it to me, and I ended up going to get the managers. At some point they sat down, after the manager started keeping an eye on them. As soon as they sat down, all the affection was gone. They had polite, civil, if not slightly tense conversation, and basically ended up just leaving. I don't think they ever ordered anything besides the soda and water. And Mark said they left him an almost $10 tip. They were there for roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours total. 3. This happened when I was still a freshman in college. It was the 2nd semester of the school year. I had an English class in a classroom within one of the newer buildings in the university. During that time, classes are either scheduled Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday. My English class was scheduled on Monday, Thursday, at 1 to 2:30 p.m. We usually have 2 weeks vacation during the Christmas season, so when we went back to our English class on January, we were surprised to find several students from a different section occupying our classroom. I asked one of my classmates what happened, and this was when things started to get weird. He told me that the other section was claiming our classroom and kept on insisting that they'd been using it since the start of the semester. This started a debate between the 2 sections. I was really puzzled by what was happening. I had religiously attended this class, and I'm quite sure that this was the classroom that we have been using since the start of the semester. I even went out and checked the room number to be sure. Eventually, both sections pulled out our Form 5 to check our schedules. True enough, there was a mix-up with the schedule and the classroom. Both forms have Monday-Thursday, 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. for this classroom. However, the weird thing was that students from both sections kept on insisting that they have been using the classroom since the start of the semester. Even the 2 professors who handled the classes were puzzled by the incident. There are about 30 students from each class, but no one noticed anything for the past 2 months when we held our classes inside that room. How can 2 sections hold 2 different classes in the same room at the same time and not see each other? Were there 2 different dimensions within that classroom? It has been 11 years since that incident, but I still can't explain what happened. 4. Hear me out, because I promise this isn't some dumb ghost story. I literally think I went back in time or visited a different dimension, but I feel that it was influenced by a paranormal force, and you'll get why if you read on. The summer before last, me and my friends would often visit this haunted covered bridge. We were trying to see ghosts and stuff, but honestly it was just fun regardless. The bridge's story was that a woman threw her baby in the river and then hung herself within the bridge back around probably the 1800s or before. So you were supposed to turn your car off and wait in the bridge. People claimed to see her baby crying from the river and also the footsteps of the woman on top of the car. This never happened to us at all, but something else really fucking scary did. Me and my friend were driving there, and since we went so often, we were pretty familiar with the usual route and scenery. We were going the way we always did, but for some reason, all of our surroundings changed into something we didn't recognize. We were on an actual dirt road, like a really crappy looking one, all surrounded by a thick forest. All the houses were gone, which was weird, because the bridge was surrounded by a neighborhood. And usually you'd go down a hill and then be right in front of the bridge, but the hill was just gone. We thought maybe we got lost, but as we sat in the bridge, everything felt wrong, and we decided to leave immediately. Once we exited the bridge, everything was back to normal. The road was paved and the houses were back. And we both were like, "Did you recognize that dirt road?" We realized that literally everything before the bridge had just vanished into a bare and seemingly uninhabited looking environment. Just showed no signs of humanity, other than this shitty dirt road. We never went back. I don't know if the date and time we were there was vital to the origin of the bridge, and what may inhabit it, which now I think is totally different from the story people tell, and much more sinister rather than sad. Like some sort of annual thing, if that's how that works. And then took on a flashback of the bridge and its surroundings as it was during early civilization, or if we just entered another dimension. Or who knows, maybe it was a product of paranoia, because people do tend to freak themselves out and see things they want to see, but like so many key landscapes were just gone, and I'm sure of that. If I was going to see something out of paranoia, it wouldn't have happened before entering the bridge, don't you think? Also, we both noticed it, but only brought it up after leaving the bridge, so we would have had to have built hysteria worthy of fabricating the exact same thing from the exact same observations at the exact same time, totally independently, without the influence of the other person. But it was so terrifying, and I will never go back to that goddamn bridge. I was convinced that it was all a sham because nothing really ever happened when we went there so many times before. But I think that bridge has more to it than people think. and whatever resides within it is not friendly. The vibes were all wrong to the point where we couldn't even stand to be there for a minute. Our previous trips had never felt like that, not even close. I just wonder what may have happened if we stayed. It freaks me out to think about it. Like, what if we got stuck in that dimension or something, and just vanished from the real world? I don't know, man, but holy shit. I'm glad we got out of there. 5. So honestly, I don't know what to call these occurrences. They've happened to nearly everyone in my family, but my 16-year-old brother. Our house is decently haunted too, so maybe it's a ghost thing. But it doesn't really feel like that. Anyways, so the first time this happened to me, I had woken up particularly late that day, after having a long work shift the night before. I stayed in my room reading and doing homework instead of going downstairs to talk to family, because I had other things to do. An hour later, I heard my sister yell from her room down the hall, "Hey, can you come here?" I take my time getting up, irritated that she's bothering me. I open my door and she yells, "Oh wait, never mind." I huff and go back to what I was doing. Fast forward 2 hours and my dad gets home from work. I can hear him making his way to my room, and he comes in and tells me we need to go pick up my sister from band. I look at him confused and tell him she's been home all day. He looks at me bewildered and we both check her room and, lo and behold, she's not there. I freak out, he freaks out. Neither of us have an explanation. The second time I was in my room, again reading, my dad and I had just had a mildly heated debate about politics, so I was reading to calm down. I hear my stepmom come upstairs and she stands in my doorway. She asks me what's wrong, and I looked at her confused and said I was fine. She asked me why I was slamming things then. I again am confused because I hadn't slammed anything. I came into my room, sat in my bed to read, and that was the extent of it. Again we both freak out a little and can't explain what she heard. Another time this happened when my father, stepmom, and I were sitting on the couch watching TV. Our basement door is just across from us, but we always keep it closed and locked because my baby sister is at the stage of opening doors and getting into things she shouldn't. Anyway, so we're sitting here watching TV, and out of nowhere, there are 3 very clear knocks on the basement door. My stepmom and I both stare at the door and then at each other while my father is clearly trying to ignore what he just heard. There was no one else in the house, and there's no other way to get into the basement other than from that door. These things have happened several other times, and almost every time, either my stepmom's, my sister's, or my voice is the one that is heard talking in other rooms. And it's almost always us that we think we hear walking around or doing things in our rooms when we're not there. I really don't have an explanation for it, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 55. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I had a bit of a hitchhiker's moment when I was recording one of those stories there. There was a line in one of them that said time is an illusion, and I kept having to stop myself from saying lunchtime doubly so. I very much enjoy Hitchhikers in pretty much all its forms. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.